ultimate no BS guide to generating unlimited off-market direct-to-seller leads at the lowest cost. My name is Ben Kaplan. Who am I? I am the CEO and founder of No Accent Callers, premier international cold calling solution, all without the foreign accents. We've scaled over 150 businesses, from real estate wholesalers, AI logistics SaaS companies, roofing companies, marketing agencies, commercial real estate companies, insurance, you name it, all through cold calling. I myself was a cold caller. I kid you not, I started off by hand dialing every single day. Show up to the office at 7 a.m., there'd be a printed out Excel sheet, pick up the landline, hand dial from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. I know how much cold calling sucks. I know how much of a grind it is, but I also know how important it is in terms of going out there, playing offense, and winning business. These are some of the results that we have gotten for some of our clients: $35K assignment fee, 5 appointments booked in a day, 9 calling days, 51 sales appointments, as well as booking meetings with some of the biggest companies in the world. For example, Cushman & Wakefield, a commercial real estate company who does $10 billion a year in revenue. We booked a call with their CEO. Okay, so who is this video for? This video is for residential real estate wholesalers who are looking to scale their business and get more leads. And this is also for real estate wholesalers who don't really know how to cold call correctly. This video is not for people who are looking to cold call in either commercial, industrial, or land, as that is a little bit more specific and not what we're going over today. What we're going to be covering today is why cold calling is so effective for real estate wholesalers, how to structure a winning cold calling campaign, the biggest mistakes people make, and obviously the correct expectations to have. Okay, so why is cold calling so effective for real estate wholesalers? Look, the biggest mistake that people make when they run their real estate wholesaling business is they think it's a real estate business. It's actually not. It's actually a marketing and sales business disguised as a real one. Here's the thing about business. Every single one of them across every industry in the world is the same. You need marketing. You need to bring leads in. You need to sell them. You need to close them. And then you need to fulfill whatever the product or service is. For wholesaling, you need to be bringing motivated sellers in. That's the marketing. For sales, you need to be negotiating with the sellers and getting it under contract. Okay, now you have it under contract. What is fulfillment? Getting it to that investor. Buying and holding yourself, or whatever exit strategy that you want to use. For wholesalers, cold calling is a must-have because you need to be filling the top of the funnel with leads every single day. You know how we said that this is a marketing and sales business and not a real estate business? The number one sales quote that I have ever heard is, the work you put in the next 30 days prospecting, you see the results over the next 90. So if you're continuing to fill the top of the funnel with motivated seller leads, obviously some who are ready to sign right away, and then some who will probably never be selling their house, you need to constantly have that inflow of leads, because the moment you stop prospecting, the moment your pipeline is gone, and less money you're going to make. At a super, super high level overview, obviously it's way more complicated and specific. This is what A to Z looks like for wholesaling. You get leads in, you negotiate with the leads, you comp, you find the correct exit strategy for whichever situation they're in, you get the property under contract, you find the buyer, you get the walkthrough, and then you dispose. Here's the thing, you can't have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 without seller leads. So this is what we call the top of the funnel. And every single business has a funnel. And when you're constantly filling your funnel in with leads, it's going to trickle down, and you're gonna get deals, and you're going to make $10,000, $30,000, $40,000 assignment fees. So why do we like cold calling? You're able to get the highest amount of leads in terms of quantity at the lowest amount of cost per lead. If someone came to me and was like, Ben, I have $10,000 a month to spend in marketing, what would you do? I would not tell them only do cold calling, because that would be BS. You need to have multiple marketing channels. But like I said, each one have its pros and its cons. You got pay-per-click, pay-per-lead, direct mail, text blasting, and then cold calling. So pay-per-click, you're typically gonna get someone who's higher motivation, as they filled out some type of form, so it's gonna be more inbound, and they're gonna be ready to sign sooner. But some of the cons are, it's a higher cost per lead, probably filled out 8 other ads, so 8 other wholesalers or investors are calling them to get that person under contract. And a good amount of the time, they're just filling out the ads to see what type of offer can they get on their property. They actually have no intention of selling, maybe a little bit of motivation, but they're more price oriented. Obviously, some people are going to be super motivated and ready to sign right away, but that's with all marketing channels. And then also, you need a lot of ad spend. Look, if you're going to try spending $300-$400 a month on pay-per-click, I'm sorry, you're not going to get results. The best and biggest wholesalers in the space, you know how much money they're spending? Hundreds of thousands of dollars every single month on Google pay-per-click, Facebook ads, so the cost per lead is incredibly high. Then you also have pay-per-lead services. Typically, these are going to be the highest motivation of someone ready to sign right now. Why? Some service, aka the lead provider, they're either running the ads, and then once they're running the ads, they're going to be calling the seller to qualify them to see how motivated they are. But once they do that and they have someone who's ready to go, they're going to be sending it to 9 or 10 different people. So yeah, you're going to get someone more likely to send or more likely to sign right now. Yeah, they're going to refund you on some of the bad leads, but that is the highest cost per lead, around $400 to $500 per lead. And they're also getting called by 14 or 15 other of the pay-per-lead clients. And when you're doing wholesaling at scale, spending $300-$400 a lead, and you're trying to do $300, $400, $500K a month, it gets very pricey. The next marketing channel that we have is direct mail. Some pros about direct mail is you're sending mail directly to the seller, and depending on the service that you have, it's pretty personable. Some of the cons, it's super expensive, it's very low conversion rate, the sales cycle is very long. I know people right now who, let's say they sent a piece of mail on January 1st. They might not get their first deal from that mail until maybe May, June. Of course, there's always going to be some people who call right now and are interested, but it's typically a longer sales cycle. It's also very easy for the mail to get thrown away. So you might go send $10,000 worth of mail, all for it to just get thrown in the trash. And then also with the direct mail, typically you're going to see lower motivation. Similar to really any lead service, they're calling, they want to see a price. Of course, every now and then there's going to be someone who's so distressed, because there are distressed people in the country, but typically they're going to just be price shopping, seeing an offer that they can get. Another marketing channel that we have is text blasting. Some pros about this, super cheap, and it's possibly direct to the seller. Cons, there is so much regulation. If any of you have tried text blasting, you know how annoying these A2P verifications are. It's very easy for your numbers to get banned, so you might take 3, 4, 5 months to get your numbers verified. You go send one text blast and they're all shut down. And then also, in terms of the seller, it's perceived as very, very spammy. How many people have gotten a text from that random green number and you're like, what the hell is this? Odds are probably people are not going to respond. And then also, it's very easy for the seller to ignore. Then we have cold calling. Look, this is hands down the cheapest cost per lead. We typically see one cold caller can get anywhere between 25 to 40 leads per month. And this is the average cost per lead of around $15 to $35. This is direct to the seller. You're calling them. It's very personalized. Startup cost is super low. You can go pick up your phone right now and start hand dialing people. Obviously, it's going to take a long time, but you can get started with pretty much $20, $30. Another pro about cold calling, it's very, very delegatable. You can go build your own cold calling team, or you can go hire a VA service like no accent callers, for example. And then also, another important thing to think about, who is the main demographic of a seller here? There is a statistic that I believe 55-60% of residential homeowners are boomers. How do boomers communicate? They don't communicate on Instagram DMs. They don't communicate on Snapchat. Odds are they're just on their phone, and when you cold call them, it's something that they're very, very familiar with. Here are the cons of cold calling. Super long sales cycle. Because you're going and interrupting someone's day and they say, oh, I'm interested in selling. They might not be interested in selling right now. It might take 3, 4, 5, 6 months of follow-up to get them along. And then the next thing, there's a lot of follow-up. Oh, I've got some other cons as well. Cold calling, it absolutely sucks to do. Unless you're one of those weird guys like myself who actually enjoys cold calling and enjoys the game of it, odds are you don't want to be doing it yourself. But when it comes down to real estate wholesaling and getting direct-to-seller leads, cold calling is tried, it's true, and a lot of deals get done through cold calling. Okay, now we know why cold calling. Now let's learn how to structure a proper winning cold calling campaign. And I always like to say, a great cold calling campaign is like a pyramid. At the bottom, the base, the foundation, and the most important is the data. You need to be calling the right people. You need to be calling the right phone numbers. Next is the phone system. Look, you could be calling all the right people in the world, but if your phone number is showing up as spam, people are not going to pick up. Next is volume. Look, if you're making 20 to 30 cold calls a day, I'm sorry, your campaign is not going to work. You need to be getting a power dialer, and you need to be making a minimum 1,500 to 2,000 dials in a single day. The beautiful thing is we have modern technology, and we're able to do it. And then finally, it's the skills and the accent of the caller. In terms of like a US-based cold caller, you're not going to have to deal with accent, but you want to make sure that they're dialed in. But if you're using an overseas cold caller, you could have the best data in the world. You could have a phone system that never shows up as spam. You could be making 3,000, 4,000 calls in a single day. But if you have a very inexperienced cold caller who sounds like they're a foreign national, I'm sorry, people are going to hang up the phone every single day. For those who are looking to, start cold calling themselves and they don't want to go pay a service like No Accent Callers, which is totally fine, here's some options you could have. For data, I would recommend, like Batch Leads, PropStream, Deal Machine, or PropWire. You have to be careful with the skip tracing because that's how they get you. The data providers don't want me telling you this, but normally skip tracing is around 1 cent, but they'll go charge you 10, 11, 12 cents. If you guys need help with skip tracing, just shoot me a DM. We're able to pull and skip trace good data for around 3 cents a lead. And then if you want to use your own dialer system, I would recommend Ready Mode, Mojo Dialer, Kixi. We personally use one that's on a private carrier and a private network, but that's a little bit more expensive and not everyone able to use it. But now I want to get into, what some of the biggest mistakes are. The number one biggest mistake that I see people with cold calling is lack of volume. You're not going to get results with 25, 30 calls a day. You need to at least be minimum making 300 dials a day for it to be effective. Because look, cold calling is a numbers game, but then it's also a skills game. Second biggest mistake people make is calling with spam likely numbers. How many times have you gotten a call from someone that says spam likely or likely telemarketing? 9 out of 10 times, you're not going to pick it up. So if you're not swapping your numbers and monitoring their health, and you're calling with spam likely phone numbers, you can go be making 6,000, 7,000 calls a day, but you're going to get a pickup rate of around 1 to 2% because it literally says spam likely. Third biggest mistake people make, especially wholesalers, is really cold calling themselves. I want to reiterate this time and time again. The number one thing, the most highest leveraging that any wholesaler can do, it's talking to sellers. It's not finding the motivated sellers. It's talking with them. It's negotiating, because when you strip down every little aspect of a wholesaling business, what is the one thing that moves the needle forward? It is getting contracts and then dispoing them. Can't dispo a contract unless you have it. So when you're thinking of any task to do, think of the one that generates revenue, which is always talking to sellers. So when you cold call yourself, you might spend 5, 6, 7 hours a day cold calling yourself, and that's just trying to find the motivated leads. But then you're burnt out to go actually negotiate with the sellers. Do all that work for nothing. So this is something that's super easy to delegate. The fourth biggest mistake is not finding motivation. A lot of people will cold call and they'll get leads, but you know what those leads are? Oh, I'm open to selling, but at the right price. Here's the thing. Everybody is a seller at the right price. I'm tired right now, But if you go offer me 10K for my energy drink, I'm going to sell that to you in a heartbeat. So a lot of individual VAs, other call centers, as well as, people who are just cold calling themselves, the leads that they're getting are people who just want to shop offers. So when you're cold calling, the single most important thing is asking for motivation. Why? Motivation, pain, that drives change. Or here's the thing about talking to residential sellers. It is a very emotional process. I want you to be in the seller's shoes. Imagine living in a home for 25, 30 years. And then all of a sudden, you get fired. All of a sudden, your interest payments just went up and you can't afford that house anymore. That's going to be an emotional process because you have 20 to 25 years of memories. And then when you have someone who's calling on the phone and just only being transactional, it's going to turn off the prospect. So when you're calling, you need to find the motivation, whether they're getting divorced, whether they're about to go into foreclosure, whether their kids just moved out of the house and now they want to retire in Florida. These are all valid reasons and that you need to be getting on the cold call for the lead to even be worth it. And then the fifth biggest mistake, it's thinking that the prospect cares about your business. I kid you not. I have heard cold calls of people saying, hey, I represent XYZ investor. We are the best investors in the local area. Hang up. No one cares about your business. Nobody cares that you're trying to wholesale. Nobody does. You know what the prospect cares about? I have pain. I need it to be solved. I need to sell my house. I don't care about this person's business. I just want to make sure that I'm getting the right price or I'm getting my pain figured out. Okay, let's say you're in the groove cold calling. You got good data. You got a good dialer. And you're calling people. What is a good cold calling lead? It's the 4 pillars of motivation. You need to get an asking price. I want $300,000 for my property. Need a timeline. I'm looking to sell in 2 weeks. I'm looking to sell in 4 or 5 months. You need to know the motivation. I'm selling because my wife is divorcing me and I don't want her to get the house. Then we need to know the condition of the property. Is it, turnkey? Is it need 10, 15K of work? We need to know all of these things so that when we go and comp our properties and come back and start negotiating, we're negotiating the right numbers. Because I'll tell you right now, anybody in this world right now can go get a million wholesaling contracts. I just called Joe at XYZ Street. Here's $1 million on your 100K property. Oh, I'm signing for this in a heartbeat. It's a once-in-a-lifetime offer. Now you got to go find an investor. $1 million? This property's worth $200,000-300K. The heck are you doing? So if you don't know the condition of the property, if you are not comping the deal correctly, you can go get the contract, but then it's not going to be able to be sold. Okay, now that we know what information we need to be getting off a cold call, what are the expectations of a cold call lead? As I said earlier, and I will reiterate again, cold calling, it is typically lower motivation because it's not inbound, it's outbound, and it typically has a longer sales process. So for someone who's distressed or thinking about selling, and you go start negotiating them, expecting them to sign a contract on the first or second call, it's the biggest mistake ever. And sellers, they could tell who actually wants to help versus who's just being transactional and wants to make money. So with cold calling a lead, hey, maybe you need to follow up 7-8 months. It's part of the game. If you don't want to follow up like that, you shouldn't be in this business. All in all, cold calling is single-handedly one of the best ways to start generating leads, getting contracts in wholesale. If you're looking for some expert cold callers at a fraction of the price, people who have 2 to 4 years experience, specifically cold calling for wholesalers, head over to noaccentcallers.com, book a meeting, you'll hop on a call with me, we'll understand what your situation is, I'll tell you what we do to see if it's even a good fit. Appreciate you guys. This is the first YouTube video. If you guys have any suggestions on what cold calling videos you want to see, leave them in the comments. Have a good one, guys.